When Haley discovers that the powerful corporation funding her groundbreaking environmental research is the same family that disowned her years ago, she faces a harrowing choice: protect her career or expose a legacy of corporate corruption that threatens the planet. In a battle where science meets betrayal, Haley must unravel the truth before it destroys everything she's fought for. The late afternoon sun dipped behind the skyline, casting long shadows over the city. Haley Harper sat at her cluttered kitchen table, her phone buzzing insistently. It was a message from an unknown number. She hesitated before pressing play on the voicemail. "Haley, if you're hearing this, it means I'm in trouble." Lindsay's trembling voice crackled through the speaker. "They're watching me, the people Dad works with, the syndicate. I don't know who to trust anymore. Please, find me." The message cut off abruptly. Haley's heart pounded as a cold wave of fear washed over her. Lindsay, her younger sister, had always been the adventurous one, curious, fearless, but sometimes reckless. Now she sounded terrified. And disappearing without a word? For months, their family dinners had been strained, fraying under the weight of secrets. Their father, Elias Blackwood, CEO of Harper Global, had been distant and cold ever since the boardroom scandal broke. Haley had suspected something darker lurking beneath his polished facade. She grabbed her jacket and rushed out, her mind racing. Lindsay had last been seen at the Blackwood estate, the family mansion perched on the outskirts of town, a place as imposing as it was mysterious. Haley's instinct told her she'd find answers there. Driving through the twisting roads that led to the estate, memories flooded back. Childhood summers spent running through the gardens, whispered conversations behind closed doors, and the sudden changes when their father's empire grew too powerful and too dangerous. At the estate, the gates stood ajar, swinging slowly in the wind. Haley's breath caught as she stepped inside the grand foyer. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint ticking of an antique clock. On the marble floor, she spotted a single envelope addressed to her in Lindsay's neat handwriting. Inside, she found a stack of papers, financial records, handwritten notes, and a crudely drawn map of the estate. The notes hinted at secret meetings, coded messages, and a syndicate controlling everything from the shadows. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind her. She spun around, heart racing. Standing there was Marcus Doyle, a former family friend turned investigative journalist, his eyes sharp with concern. "You're digging into dangerous territory, Haley," Marcus warned. "They won't let this go quietly. Lindsay's disappearance isn't a coincidence." Before Haley could respond, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking or you'll be next." Haley barely registered Marcus's warning as adrenaline surged through her veins. The cryptic message on her phone echoed in her mind. "Stop looking, or you'll be next." She glanced once more at the papers Lindsay had left behind. Among the financial documents were several transactions with odd recipients, accounts linked to shell companies, offshore banks, and suspiciously labeled project funds. Haley's gut told her these weren't just business expenses. "We need to get these to someone who can help," Marcus said, eyes scanning the room. "A trusted contact with resources and no ties to the Blackwood network." Haley nodded, suddenly grateful for the journalist's presence. Despite their fractured past, Marcus was one of the few people she could trust to dig deeper without fear. They left the mansion under the cover of dusk, slipping into the city's underbelly where secrets were currency, and every shadow could hide a threat. Marcus led her to an underground safe house, an unmarked building packed with screens, files, and encrypted communication devices. Inside, they connected Lindsay's documents to a larger puzzle, an international syndicate funneling money through Harper Global's subsidiaries, laundering billions while keeping the family's true power hidden from the public eye. As they pieced together the syndicate's web, a name kept appearing: Viktor Sokolov, a shadowy figure believed to be the mastermind behind the operation. The mystery deepened when they discovered that Elias Blackwood had met with Sokolov months before Lindsay vanished. "Your father's involvement goes deeper than anyone suspected," Marcus murmured. "If Lindsay found out and threatened to expose him, that would explain why she disappeared." A sudden crash startled them. The safe house's door rattled violently as heavy boots pounded the stairs. "They found us," Marcus said grimly. We need to move. Now. Grabbing the files, Haley and Marcus slipped out through a back exit into the maze of alleyways. The night swallowed them as they vanished into the city's dark heart, with unseen eyes tracking their every move. Chat beer. Stakes were higher than Haley imagined. Lindsay's disappearance was only the surface of a much darker conspiracy. And with every step closer to the truth, Haley knew one thing. They were all in danger. Haley's breath came in quick gasps as they navigated the labyrinth of narrow alleyways. The city's cold night air bit at her skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill creeping down her spine. The files in her backpack felt heavier with every step, not just because of their weight, but because of what they contained. They finally slowed near an abandoned subway station, a place Marcus said was safe, at least for now. As they caught their breath, Marcus glanced at Haley with a question in his eyes. Why did you leave everything behind? Why disappear from your own family? Haley's jaw tightened. That was the question she'd been running from for years. Now, with the conspiracy unraveling, it seemed impossible to hide. I wasn't just running away, she said quietly. I was trying to survive. When I discovered the truth about my father's empire, the lies, the corruption, I confronted him. It ended badly. They painted me as the problem, pushed me out. I lost everything. Lindsay was the only family I had left. Marcus's eyes narrowed. And now? Now I have to finish what Lindsay started. Expose the Blackwoods. But the deeper I dig, the more I realize how dangerous this is. They won't stop until I'm silenced. Suddenly, Haley's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We know where you are. Stop now or suffer the consequences. Marcus cursed under his breath. They're closing in. We need allies. People who can fight back. Haley nodded, steeling herself. This wasn't just about family secrets anymore. It was a battle against a hidden enemy with power that reached far beyond anything she'd imagined. As dawn approached, Haley made a silent vow. No matter the cost, she would uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the darkest shadows of her past. The subway station was colder than Haley expected, damp shadows stretching across the cracked tiles. Marcus pulled a worn laptop from his bag, his fingers flying over the keys as he hacked into a secure network. We don't have much time, he muttered. If the Blackwoods are this organized, they've probably already flagged your phone and any digital trace. Haley nodded grimly. I need to get this information to someone I can trust. A journalist, maybe, or an old friend from Lindsay's network. Just then, a faint noise echoed from the tunnel entrance. They both froze. Someone's coming, Marcus whispered, packing up the laptop. Get ready. The figure emerged, a tall woman in a leather jacket, eyes sharp and assessing. I'm not with them, she said quickly, raising her hands. Name's Rachel. I work in investigative journalism. Lindsay reached out to me before she disappeared. Haley's heart skipped. You can help? Rachel nodded. I have sources, contacts who've been following the Blackwoods for years, but they're ruthless. We need to be careful. The three of them huddled close as Rachel pulled out a folder thick with documents and photos, evidence, that matched and expanded Haley's files. The Blackwoods aren't just corrupt businessmen, Rachel said. They're tied to illegal arms trading, political bribery. Even worse. Haley swallowed hard. This was bigger than she thought. Outside, footsteps multiplied, heavy and deliberate. They're closing in, Marcus said. We need a plan. Rachel looked at Haley. I have a safe house nearby. You'll be protected there, at least for now. As they moved into the night, the city around them seemed to pulse with danger, an invisible web tightening its grip. But Haley felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't alone anymore. The safe house was tucked away in a quiet, forgotten part of the city, a modest brownstone with boarded windows and an unassuming door. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but secure. Rachel motioned for Haley and Marcus to sit while she pulled out a laptop and connected to a secure line. We've got to get this evidence into the right hands, Rachel said. Once the media has it, there's no turning back for the Blackwoods. Marcus frowned. But we don't know who in the media is clean. The Blackwoods have fingers everywhere. Haley rubbed her temples. Then we need to be smart. Anonymous. Tips, encrypted messages, drop-offs. Rachel nodded, eyes sharp. I have a trusted contact. A reporter known for exposing corruption. I'll arrange a meeting. For a moment, hope seemed possible. But then the power flickered. The lights dimmed. A low hum filled the room. Haley's breath caught. What's happening? Marcus stood abruptly, moving to the window. We've been compromised. Outside, faint figures moved in the shadows, circling. Blackwoods men, Rachel said grimly. They found us faster than expected. Haley's heart pounded. The fight was far from over. We need to move. Now, Rachel said. She grabbed a small bag, stuffing it with flash drives and papers. Marcus grabbed his backpack. Haley hesitated. What about the evidence? Rachel's eyes met hers. It's already uploaded to a secure cloud. We just need to survive long enough for it to be uncovered. A sudden crash shattered the silence. Someone was breaking in. The safe house was no longer safe. The door splintered under a heavy kick, shards of wood scattering across the floor. Haley's breath caught in her throat as shadowed figures poured into the room. Split up! Rachel hissed, pulling Haley toward a back exit she'd spotted earlier. Marcus stayed behind, creating a diversion. Haley's legs moved on pure adrenaline as they slipped through the narrow alley behind the safe house. The cold night air hit her face, sharp and biting, but she barely noticed. Gunshots rang out, echoing in the dark streets. Marcus! Haley called out, panic rising. He's buying us time, Rachel said grimly. We have to keep moving. They darted through back streets and abandoned buildings, every sound making Haley's heart jump. Footsteps thundered behind them, their pursuers closing in. After what felt like hours, they reached an old subway station, long since closed to the public. Rachel pulled a rusted grate open. In here! They slipped inside, the darkness swallowing them whole. Breathing hard, Haley leaned against the cold wall. How did they find us so fast? Rachel shook her head. There's a mole. Someone is feeding the Blackwoods information from the inside. Haley's stomach twisted. Betrayal was closer than she thought. We need to regroup and find that mole, Rachel said, before it's too late. Outside sirens wailed in the distance, a haunting reminder. The city was watching, and the game was far from over. The subway station was dim and cold, the stale air thick with tension. Haley and Rachel sat in silence, listening to the distant echoes of their pursuers above. Rachel pulled out a crumpled map. We need to narrow down who's leaking intel. There's only one way. We set a trap. How? Haley asked, wary. We send a false lead, something juicy enough to draw out the mole. Haley's mind raced. But what if we're wrong? We could expose someone innocent or get ourselves killed. Rachel's eyes hardened. It's a risk we have to take. The Blackwoods won't stop until they find us. They contacted Marcus via burner phone. His voice was tense but steady. I've got a contact inside Blackwoods. She suspects there's a mole too. We can't trust anyone. Haley's chest tightened. Then how do we know whom to trust? Rachel's fingers hovered over the screen. We don't. But we can watch and wait, and when the mole makes a move, we'll be ready. Suddenly, the phone beeped. A message from an unknown number. Meet at the old pier. Midnight. Come alone. Haley swallowed hard. Was this a trap, or their only chance? Rachel stood up, her gaze fierce. It's a risk we have to take. You ready? Haley nodded, heart pounding, ready as I'll ever be. The night was far from over, and the real battle was just beginning. The clock struck midnight as Haley approached the deserted pier. The cold wind bit at her skin, carrying the faint smell of salt and rust. Shadows danced beneath the flickering street lamp, and the creaking of the old dock echoed eerily. Her heart pounded. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but she had no choice. Haley's plan depended on it. From the darkness, a figure emerged. A woman, slender and cloaked in black. She stepped into the light just enough for Haley to catch a glimpse of her sharp eyes. Haley, the woman whispered. You didn't think you'd be the only one the Blackwoods wanted, did you? Haley's breath caught. Who are you? The bi? Woman smiled bitterly. Name's Lydia. I've been undercover for months feeding the Blackwoods false information. But now, someone else is playing us all. Who? Haley demanded. Someone inside your circle. Someone you trust. A sudden noise behind Haley made her spin around, a shadowy figure rushing forward. Instinctively, Haley dodged just as a knife sliced the air where she'd been standing. Lydia pushed Haley toward a narrow alley. We don't have much time. Follow me if you want answers, or stay here and get caught. Breathing hard, Haley followed, adrenaline surging through her veins. Haley stumbled through the dark alley, the sound of footsteps closing in behind them. Lydia led the way with purpose, weaving through narrow passages only she seemed to know. The city's nightlife was distant now, replaced by an oppressive silence broken only by their hurried breaths. Finally, they reached an old, abandoned warehouse. Lydia pulled out a small key and unlocked a rusted door. Inside, the air was thick, with dust and the faint hum of a hidden generator. A flickering lantern illuminated a cluttered room filled with papers, maps, and computer monitors. On one screen, a live feed showed the Blackwoods mansion, cameras Haley hadn't known existed. Lydia turned to Haley. I've been tracking their movements for months, but it's not just the Blackwoods. There's a mole feeding information to their rivals. If we don't find out who, they'll destroy everything, including you. Haley's mind raced. But who could it be? I trusted so many. Lydia shook her head. Trust is a luxury we don't have. Not anymore. Suddenly, the monitors flickered and went dark. The generator's hum cut out. The room plunged into silence. We've been found, Lydia said grimly. Get ready. This fight is just beginning. The morning after the gala, Haley sat in her quiet office, the city skyline glittering beyond her window. The award plaque sat on her desk, gleaming softly in the daylight. Yet the victory felt hollow. The confrontation with her mother had left an echo in her mind, a mix of anger, confusion, and a strange yearning for closure that seemed more elusive than ever. She pulled out the thick file she'd received from her assistant the day before, the one containing the grant documents from Mosaic Fertilizers. Her fingers trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages. Contracts, terms, legal jargon. The deeper she delved, the clearer it became that the grant was not just a financial gift. It was a strategic move by Mosaic to soften their public image amidst mounting criticism over environmental violations. Haley knew her work was vital, pushing sustainable chemistry solutions that could mitigate pollution and reduce harmful fertilizer runoffs. But she also knew the company's reputation was tainted by decades of environmental damage. Accepting their money felt like walking a tightrope between progress and compromise. Her phone buzzed, a message from Michael, her colleague and confidant. Coffee? Need to talk about the gala fallout. She welcomed the distraction and grabbed her coat. Outside, the city was already buzzing, but her thoughts were tangled. Could she reconcile the source of her funding with her mission? Was she unwittingly part of a corporate facade? As she met Michael at the cafe, she realized the battle ahead was bigger than science. It was about integrity, truth, and reclaiming. The narrative she had long fought for, not just in the lab, but in her own life. Michael sat across from Haley, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. So, how are you holding up? He asked gently. Haley sighed. Conflicted. The grant, it feels like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it means my research can move forward. But on the other hand, it's tied to the very company that's caused so much harm. Michael nodded thoughtfully. I get it. It's complicated. But maybe this is your chance to change things from the inside, to make Mosaic accountable. She looked up, surprised. Change them? From inside? Do you think they'd listen? Maybe not all at once, he said. But with your reputation, your voice, you could push them toward real reform, if you can keep your integrity intact. Haley leaned back, her mind racing. For years, she had rejected her family and their legacy, determined to carve her path. But now, fate had thrown her right back into the tangled web of Mosaic Fertilizers. Maybe it's time I stop running, she murmured. Michael smiled, encouraging. Exactly. And you're not alone in this. Outside the window, the morning. Sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow on the city below. Haley felt a flicker of hope. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps this unexpected connection was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she could fight for both her ideals and her family's future. Over the next few days, Haley immersed herself in the details of the mosaic, Grant and the company's recent projects. She pored over reports and environmental assessments, searching for any data that might support her research or reveal hidden risks. One afternoon, while reviewing internal documents she'd managed to access through the grant's transparency clause, Haley stumbled upon something troubling. A series of internal memos hinted at deliberate downplaying of environmental risks associated with Mosaic's latest fertilizer product. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just corporate negligence, it was a cover-up. She printed the documents, then stared at them long and hard. If she exposed this, it could spark a scandal that would shake the company and possibly derail her research funding. But staying silent felt like betraying everything she stood for. Haley's phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. "Lunch? Got something to show you?" She hesitated, then replied, "Meet you in 30. At the cafe, Michael slid a folder across the table. "I've been digging too. Found some whistleblower contacts inside Mosaic. People who want change but are scared." Haley's fingers trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were testimonials, photos, even videos. Evidence of toxic waste, dumping, and falsified reports. "We can't just sit on this," Michael said. "But we need a plan. If we move too fast, they'll crush us." Haley nodded, determination hardening in her eyes. "We'll have to be smart, careful, but we'll make sure the truth comes out." The fight was no longer just about her research. It was about justice. Haley left the park with a swirling mix of emotions, hope, doubt, and an aching uncertainty. Her mother's words lingered. "You won't be alone." Could she trust them after everything? Back at her apartment, Haley stared, out at the city skyline, her mind racing. She had the evidence, the testimonies, and now a tentative alliance with her mother. But Mosaic Fertilizers was a giant, a corporate fortress guarded by lawyers, lobbyists, and decades of influence. She couldn't fight this battle alone. Haley reached for her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. "Marcus, it's Haley. I need your help." Marcus was an old colleague from her early research days, a whistleblower advocate and investigative journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. "I thought you'd never call," Marcus said after a beat. "There's no time to waste. Mosaic's covering up environmental damage, and I have proof. But I'm up against more than I can handle alone. We'll bring this to light, together." For the first time in months, Haley felt a flicker of determination. The path ahead was perilous, but with allies by her side, she might just stand a chance. The next morning, Haley woke early, her mind still tangled in the revelations from the previous night. The documents she'd uncovered, the hidden contracts, the covert payments, were proof that Mosaic Fertilizers was far more involved in the pollution crisis than she had imagined. But now, knowing that the company's leadership included her estranged parents, added a personal weight she wasn't prepared for. She sat by the window, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, staring out at the city skyline. How much did they know about her? About her work? Did they realize she had been fighting quietly but fiercely against the very damage their company was causing? Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was an encrypted message from Jonas, the journalist who had been helping her investigate. "Mosaic Fertilizers. Meeting tonight. Found something that might blow the case wide open. Be ready." Haley's heart pounded. This wasn't just about science anymore. It was a battle, one that risked everything. As night fell, Haley prepared. For the meeting. She packed the documents in a secure folder, slipped on her coat, and headed out, determined to expose the truth no matter the cost. The dim light of the cafe gave the place a secretive vibe as Haley slipped inside. Jonas was already there, a laptop open in front of him and an intense look on his face. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. "I dug deeper into Mosaic Fertilizers' offshore accounts. There's a web of shell companies funneling money into lobbying efforts to block environmental regulations, and it all traces back to your parents' holding. Haley felt a chill. It wasn't just negligence or bad policy. They were actively sabotaging the very laws designed to protect the environment. But that's not all, Jonas continued, pulling up charts and emails. There's evidence of bribes to local officials and falsified environmental reports. They've been covering up pollution levels for years. Haley leaned closer, absorbing every detail. This wasn't just a scandal. It was criminal. We need to go public, Jonas said. The media, the environmental agencies, even Congress, this is going to shake things up. Haley hesitated. Going public would mean bringing her parents down, people she hadn't spoken to in years, but who still haunted her memories. But deep down, she knew there was no turning back. Justice wasn't just for her, it was for every community suffering from the fallout. Let's do it, she said, resolve hardening in her voice. Haley's exposé hit the headlines like a bombshell. The evidence Jonas uncovered was irrefutable. Mosaic Fertilizers was exposed for decades of corruption, environmental destruction, and bribery. The public outcry was immediate and fierce. Government agencies launched investigations. Environmental groups rallied, demanding reforms. Haley's name became synonymous with courage and truth. But the personal cost was high. Haley's parents publicly disowned her, calling her a traitor to the family. Yet she stood firm, knowing she had chosen the right path. In the months that followed, Mosaic's executives were held accountable, fines imposed, and sweeping environmental protections passed into law. Haley found unexpected allies among former employees and whistleblowers. Together, they created a nonprofit dedicated to environmental justice and scientific integrity. Standing before a crowd at an environmental summit, Haley felt the weight of her journey. From estrangement and silence to becoming a voice for the voiceless, she had reclaimed her story and her power. The mosaic of her life, once fractured, was now whole.